Next to having good orchestras, a fine group of dancers is an almost organic need for the spiritual and physical life of the community. Besides the passion they show for their music and dancing and the important part these play in the ritual, to have a skillful and famous group of dancers brings pride and social prestige to the village ward, the Banja. The Balinese attribute a divine origin to music and dancing. It is said that Batara Guru, the supreme teacher, invented the first instruments, and that Indra, the lord of the heavens, originated dancing when he created the incomparably beautiful Vedari, the nymphs of heaven, to dance for the pleasure of the gods. Plays an important part in the dancer's education. While the pupil learns the elemental sequence of the dance, the basic steps and general movements of the arms, he exercises regularly to acquire suppleness of every muscle and control over each member until his body becomes practically double-jointed. The legs, however, are used with a minimum of importance in the dance, except for locomotion, and in certain sitting dances like the Keviya are not used at all. It is said that such movements are possible only because of the extreme youth of the dancers. It is true that a Legong dancer retires at 12 or 13, or perhaps continues in another type of dance, and that a fully grown girl is often considered too big to dance. But there are old women who are fine dancers, and a good Baris performer is usually a man past the middle age. Like music, dancing has developed to a standard of technical perfection that makes of it a difficult science, requiring years of special physical training and practice. The excellence of a performer does not depend only on his skill, but also on his personality, emotional intensity, and the expressiveness of his feature. Dance and ballet cannot be considered as an art separate from the theater. In fact, the arts and the theater are so closely allied that there is no word in Balinese meaning theater. No Balinese would think of separating a show into its component parts, or, on the other hand, think a show complete that did not contain music and dancing. They divide the theater rather according to the style of the story, which in turn dictates its music and the style of its technique. One boat brought the holy Barong Landong, 4 giant puppets who performed in the temple. They were Girolu, a ribald old woman with a protuberant forehead, enormously distended earlobes, and deep wrinkles outlined in gold all over her white mask. A lecherous black monster with prominent teeth called Yero Gede. A young prince, Manri, and his beautiful princess, Jili Towong, richly dressed in green and gold, who wore great flower headdresses over the yellow masks. Normal-sized attendants held gold umbrellas of state over the giants as they waddled towards the temple in ceremonial procession, with music and a retinue of men bearing spears tipped with red fur. After dedicating an offering, the giants danced to the accompaniment of gongs, flutes, and drums. That old rascal, Yerogede, talked and laughed in a deep, thunderous voice, while Jirolu leaped, whooped, and yelled in a shrill falsetto, all behaving in a manner quite undignified for their holy character. Their remarks were of the sort that made my polite Balinese friends blush, especially in the episode when the prince made love to the princess. An indispensable part of the ritual feasts of the old villages is the Baris Gede, a stately war dance in which 10 or 12 middle-aged warriors with their heads covered with flowers and wearing magic scarves, carrying long spears tipped with peacock feathers, dance in double line, grimacing and striking heroic poses until the music becomes violent. Then they enact a sham battle with their black and silver spears. No dance in the world can be more manly than the Baris. Just as the Legong is the representative feminine dance, so the Baris typifies the strong elegance of the male and is the source of material for all masculine dances. Remaining essentially a war dance, the style of the ritual Baris was later adapted to the performance of heroic plays in the Baris Pendet, in which individual dancers play the military heroes using dramatic dialogues to accompany their movement. The Janger was a recent development. It had started suddenly when about 1925 the first company of Malay operettas visited the island. The Balinese immediately created their own version of the pantomime, and the Janga spread like an epidemic. We feared that the Janga would kill other forms of Balinese dancing, but on our return 2 years later, we were surprised to find that there was no more Janga. All the famous groups had stopped. The most exhilarating show of the Balinese was dead and forgotten. Only a sleepy group remained, the Janga, for the tourists, still avidly photographing what they called temple dancers. With the passing of the Janga, the classical forms of theater regained popularity, and during our second visit, it was the Adja that had again become the favorite. A performance by a good Adja ensemble is a social event in the village. It is at Adja shows that young people meet and love affairs are started, helped by the romantic atmosphere of the love stories and the late hours. the Aussie stories